So, my name is Arjun, and I'm an engineer. My whole world is built on solving problems. But a little while ago, my wife Priya, she handed me a problem that felt, well, pretty much impossible. Our anniversary was coming up, and her request for a gift didn't just stump me, it sent me into a full-on existential crisis.
Yep, those were her exact words. Something thoughtful. Now you have to understand, for an engineer, a request like this is honestly more terrifying than a critical system failure at 3 in the morning. Why? Because there are no metrics, no success criteria. It's just a feeling. I mean, how on earth do you quantify thoughtful? To even begin to deal with this, I had to frame it in terms I could actually process. It was like being asked to code an entire application with no requirements document. No specs, no user stories, nothing. And the real kicker? I wasn't allowed to ask for hints. Because, as she explained, if I asked, it wouldn't be thoughtful anymore. It would just be me following instructions. Look at the difference. My day job is all about clarity. You give me a target, a number, something measurable, and I can build you a system to hit it. But this anniversary gift, it was the polar opposite. It was vague, totally subjective, and the risk of catastrophic failure was, well, let's just say it was high. I felt completely and utterly doomed.
So what do you do when you're an engineer faced with an impossible problem? You do what you know, you try to break it down into variables and find a logical path forward. And my first, most natural step? Of course, it was to open a spreadsheet. I was literally going to try and optimize my way to the perfect gift.
And here it is, my attempt to quantify the unquantifiable. I had columns for thoughtfulness, price, risk. I scored everything. But you know what? My own logic was my worst enemy. See, the weekend getaway, it scored pretty high on thoughtfulness, but it completely failed the not expensive constraint. I was just left with these generic, high-risk options. My whole system was fundamentally broken from the start.
Okay, so Plan A failed. My next move was just to brute force it. I must have spent hours just scrolling through Amazon, typing in thoughtful gifts for wife. I filled up a shopping cart with all these perfectly practical, safe items, a nice notebook, a fancy pen, a book by an author she likes. And sure, it ticked the boxes, but my finger just hovered over the checkout button. I couldn't do it. I just knew it was soulless. It was completely and utterly wrong.
At this point, I was totally stuck. But then, the breakthrough came from the most unexpected place. I was trying to work from a coffee shop just to get a change of scenery. And I happened to overhear a conversation at the table next to me. And that conversation, it gave me the missing variable for my entire gift equation.
That's what I heard. This woman was talking about a simple map her partner had given her, probably cost, 200 rupees? But the reason she was so blown away was that he had remembered seeing her glance at it in some random shop 2 years ago. And that was it. That was my aha moment. The value wasn't the price tag. It was the sheer amount of memory bandwidth he had allocated to storing that tiny, fleeting moment of her joy.
Right there in the cafe, I came up with a new theory. I called it the energy investment theorem. It hit me that all those gifts sitting in my Amazon cart required zero activation energy from me. But that map required a huge investment of cognitive energy. You had to remember the moment, track down the item, protect that idea over time. That investment, that was the real gift. It was a signal that you just can't fake because the resource you're spending, your attention, is so incredibly limited.
It completely reframed the problem for me. A big-ticket item, a fancy necklace that you buy in 2 minutes while you're distracted, is actually a really low-signal gift. All it proves is that you have money, which, let's be honest, is a renewable resource. But a small thing, something cheap, tied to a specific memory, now that is a high-signal gift. It proves you spent your most valuable, most finite resource, your attention, on that person. You see, the price is just noise. The cognitive effort, that's the signal.
So armed with this new theorem, I went home and tried to debug my own relationship. I started systematically searching my own memory for any little moments where Priya had expressed a want, or an interest, or a frustration. And the result was, frankly, terrifying. My memory cache was empty. It was a horrible realization. I'd basically been running my life on low-power mode, not storing any of the small data points that actually mattered.
So I did the next logical thing. I turned to our communication logs, our chat history, and there it was, staring me right in the face. A whole list of small wants she'd expressed, and each one was met with a minimal, dismissive reply from me. Cool, nice, sure. A pottery workshop, a cafe she wanted to visit, an artist she liked, a practical problem with her plants. I'd acknowledged every single one,
and then immediately flushed it from my memory. This was my data. Okay, so now I had data, and I had a framework. And I realized, instead of just picking one of these forgotten ideas, I could combine them. I could design a composite gift, a multi-phase protocol that told one single, powerful story. I am listening, I am paying attention.
This was the master plan. Every single component was designed to show a different kind of attention. The illustration proved I remembered a fleeting interest. The plant lights showed I actually noticed her daily frustrations. The treasure hunt showed I valued our past. And booking the cafe and the workshop showed I was invested in our future together.
And let me tell you, I went all in. I'm talking a full-on project. I made a Gantt chart. I had a private Trello board just to track all the tasks, like coordinating with the artist and researching the optimal lumens for indoor grow lights. This anniversary gift had become a covert operation, and I was the project manager. So, deployment day came. The treasure hunt through our old memories, the big surprise reveal at the bookshop cafe she'd wanted to visit. It all went off without a hitch. And in that moment, I realized the final deliverable wasn't the illustration or the workshop booking. It was her reaction, that shocked, delighted smile. That was the feeling I had been optimizing for all along.
Her words, right there, were the perfect confirmation of my theorem. She saw right through to the architecture of the gift. She knew it wasn't about the objects themselves, it was about the effort, the memory, the time. The signal had been received loud and clear.
And that whole experience taught me a huge lesson. Some things just can't be optimized with money. They have to be optimized with attention. That finite, non-recoverable resource, your cognitive energy, is the truest currency of care that you have to offer anyone.
I actually learned later that this idea has a name in evolutionary biology. It's called costly signaling. Think of a peacock's tail. It's metabolically expensive to grow, and it makes it an easy target for predators. But that's the whole point. The cost is the message. It signals, I am so fit, I can thrive even with this huge handicap. Investing your finite attention is a costly signal that says, I value you this much. You know, when I told this whole story to my colleague Karthik, he boiled the entire thing down into one perfect question. He just looked at me and said, so is an expensive gift actually cheaper than a thoughtful one? And when you stop defining costs in terms of money and start defining it as cognitive energy, the answer is a resounding yes.
This is what I ended up writing in my notebook, and it's really the heart of the gift equation. The wrapping paper might be what you bought, but the gift is what you remembered. When it really truly matters, just forget the price tag. That's all noise. The memory, that's the signal.